Hey guys, welcome back to Results Junkies podcast. Paul and I are talking about farms today, and we might wander into the world of pharma. We're also going to be talking about how AI is pretty prominent across companies and what Paul's feelings are on those. Spoiler alert, those feelings are not positive ones. Mr. Singh, how the heck are you?
You really know how to hype it up.
I like Fire Paul.
Yeah,
Flamethrower Paul is a fun Paul.
I'm good, man. I'm good. We're at the time of this recording, we're about 2 weeks into the schools being open here in Northern Virginia. So I've got now 4 kids spread out across 3 schools, and surprisingly, none of the schedules seem to line up with days off and pickup schedules and all that. So I'm just waiting. It's going to be a matter of time before either Dana and I forget somebody at a bus stop somewhere. We'll see what happens.
Well, I have a bit of humor for you when it relates to schools. A close friend, colleague of mine, his kids have been homeschooled up until now, and he has an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, if I remember correctly. And we had a novel chat going on amongst a group of friends yesterday where the first thing he said was, it's only the, 3rd or 4th day of school, and I got 3 emails from my school today in regards to my kids. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that sounds about right just for school stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what do you mean? And then somebody else chimes in. It's like, the group meet chats, the WhatsApp chats, all the other stuff, the sports, the activities. Like, you'll get to like 15 or 20 messages a day by the time all the after school activities ramp up, which I'm sure you can relate to times 4. And then the other thing that just gave me just an immense amount of delight and humor was his kids are in a private school, but they live in New York. And again, first time in school. And we start talking about fundraisers. He's like, oh, no. I'm not giving any money at all to any other activities or fundraisers or anything. And the rest of us are just laughing like, yeah, okay, that'll last till Thursday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What's crazy, I mean, I don't know what it was like for my parents when I was in school. I was sort of oblivious just going to school. But it's amazing to me now how many apps you have to have, how many newsletters there are, how many different like vectors you can get information from. It seems like a recipe for disaster, right? At some point, something's going to get missed. So.
Well, and I think, yes, something could get missed. I think it also ties back to something that you that you mentioned about our second article, and I won't try to foreshadow too much, but the amount of personal information going around in those threads and people who throw credit card numbers in when you're talking about buying gifts for coaches and stuff like that, I would just say that
absolutely
just ripe for information theft there. So all kinds of good stuff.
That's right.
A little bit of housekeeping. Show at resultsjunkies.com. He is at Paul Singh on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza in Motion. And let's dig in, man. I think we should start, with this notion that, industry's changing. And like we've talked a lot about, how AI will replace jobs and all those things. But, in this first article, I think the thing that was interesting to me about it, and I talked a little bit about it in pre-show, is I think this has knock-on effects of just beyond helping business owners and potentially eliminating jobs. The crux of this article, which we'll put in the link, is a company called Orchard Robotics, and they're using cameras in a way to help farmers with AI. And their general thesis is that if they can put cameras on structures that are already in the fields, tractors, trucks, things of that nature, and these cameras are of a high quality, they can analyze the quality of the fruit and provide information to the farmers on a real-time basis that they don't have now. And when I think about, farming as a whole, at least in some cases, it's still very much a manual's not the right word, but like the investigation of the fruit, how much pesticides you're putting on, when you water them, all these things are judgment calls by the farmer themselves. And so they sort of need to eyeball these things. And it led me down 2 paths. One, there's the obvious path of, hey, with so many things we've talked about from an AI standpoint, these types of software can help a farmer get a better idea of their crops, which means, in theory, a great farmer who uses these tools could cover more acres of crops with more efficiency by installing these cameras. But there's also, to me, this knock-on effect of, I could see it going both ways in terms of labor, not to touch the third rail politics, but migrant workers is a huge flashpoint in the country. And so I could certainly see this reducing the number of migrant workers. Definitely could reduce the number of days you need migrant workers because you can more accurately target when you need them to harvest and when they would leave. but also not creating any additional jobs, if you will, because a farmer could control more acres with fewer people. And that's a lot to digest.
Yeah, I wish I wish I got to participate in this fundraising, by the way, because I don't know anything about the company, but I love the distribution model, or at least what appears to be the primary distribution model. And I'm going to answer your questions, but let me start by saying that, when you and I were traveling quite a bit more, we certainly saw a lot of ag tech startups.
Yeah.
And I say this with all the respect in the world. I feel like if we had to oversimplify and sort of stereotype them into maybe two categories, I would say one of those categories would be ultra wild, ultra expensive ideas. Like, I remember one time talking to somebody who was like, yeah, I'm raising it was like a startup raising a small operating fund to purchase a surplus Global Hawk drone or something like that. And they wanted to put this sensor payload on it and take, certain photos for large farm. Like, yeah, great idea. I love it. But okay, seems a little wild. I don't even know where that company is. But the point is that was like one bucket, extremely expensive, ambitious ideas to do things like that. And then the other bucket was what I would describe as trying, like, well-meaning attempts to try to like change farmer and worker behavior. Like, hey, put this sensor around the base of every, the base of every root so that we could measure water intake or things like that. Like that would fundamentally change. You'd have to go train a worker to go do something different. What I find really interesting about this company right now is that their distribution model appears to be going to the going to the farm owner, whether that's an individual or a company, and saying, hey, look, you already got tractors driving around. You got all this farm equipment moving around, trucks, tractors, buggies, whatever it is, ATVs, whatever. Just bolt this camera on the back. And as they go through their day, we're going to take photos of this, your entire property as they move around, and we'll tell you what to do. This is really fascinating because, and I'm sure you can speak to this at length. Training frontline, particularly blue collar staff, especially as in markets where there are industries where there may be turnover, there may be language barriers, there may be other things at play, extremely difficult. So anyway, I just think it's really fascinating. And before I stop rambling about this, what I really love is that this is already kind of proven as a distribution strategy. I mean, if you think about license plate readers, a company called Flock is mentioned in there, has a couple $1 billion valuation now, but just to oversimplify their growth, it originally started with bolting cameras to the back of patrol cars. And now you don't have to retrain a police officer. You don't have to,
Right.
The police car is going to go out on the daily patrol anyway. Now you're just capturing the license plates along the way. That's such a great approach. And it allowed them to kind of not only take over the market, but for Flock, but allowed them to then expand into larger and better offerings like, gunshot monitoring and things like that. So I just think it's a really fascinating model. One of the first ones that probably got me excited when I saw it. So sucks that we didn't meet these guys earlier.
Well, yeah, and I mean, to your point, we've seen other companies. I hope I get the name right, but do you remember Treely, if I remember correctly? He was using a drone and satellite technology to analyze tree farms and/or forested acres and how to how to deforest them. And so, definitely think there are a lot of companies that are applying this sort of technology. I think, again, without trying to touch the third rail of politics, I see a lot of things coming down the pike, not just in farming, but also in the restaurant space, some space I've been for a long time, where there's this debate about how do you get migrant workers into the country for jobs that U.S. citizens don't want to do. Farming is a tough job. Cleaning a restaurant is a tough job, but there's automation technology out there in food service. I mean, there's robots that can make fries, and shake the basket and dump them and all that stuff. And there's been a push in farming for a long time to automate the harvest, which can be the tougher parts, tall trees, short bushes, all that stuff, and getting equipment to do that. But if you automate all the other parts of that process, if the watering of the trees, if the chemical production, things that require less precision can be done by robots, then you really get down to a very narrow period of time where where you're actually farming. And if you think about like going back in history, farming was a full-time job for many families. Like that was how they sustained themselves. They farmed, they traded that at market, and then they used the spoils of their trades to afford whatever else they needed. And as an industry, obviously farming is advanced incredibly, but
Yeah.
still heavily reliant on migrant labor. And it's just interesting to me that it feels like for the first time that I can think that we're on the cusp of being able to provide technological solutions that would largely eliminate the need for staffing in many parts of the farm, the lifespan of a crop in a farm.
You could be right. And I don't have any reason to push back. One of the things I
But you're
really
going
love,
to.
I'm just going to maybe provide maybe a slightly different viewpoint. I think the thing is that as much as people want to see a world where almost all jobs could be automated away, like that would be like the crazy hyperbolic pipe dream, right? I think the reality is that we're not close to that. And even if we were, let's not forget that that hardware does require maintenance, and that's going to probably require a slightly different skill set of a human that
Hmm.
needs to be employed to do that. So the point is, you're not going to anyway, where I'm going with this is what I think is really fascinating here is that when you think about farms, they're very similar to every other business in the sense that payroll is probably the highest expense or one of the top two expenses, and particularly with agriculture, water is probably a close second. Chemicals are probably a close third. Whether it's fertilizers or whatever, and then equipment's probably fourth. Somewhere in there, right? Like, so for any of the ag tech people, don't kill me. My point is, is that like a lot of times, all four of those things, labor, water, fertilizers, chemicals, whatever, and hardware is you buy a certain amount, right? You staff a certain way, you buy a certain number of tractors because whether or not you want to admit it, you know there's a little bit of waste. You know that like you're going to overwater sometimes. You know that you're going to
Hmm.
over fertilize or under like you just know there's a lot of waste. And I think what's fascinating about this is that you've got data collection happening with no additional hardware other than the cameras. Then
Right.
you've got cloud processing. I love, by the way, I don't think they actually even used the term AI. I love that. I'm pretty sure they didn't use the term AI. Maybe they do in their marketing materials. But then
Sure.
point is you upload that data up into the cloud and let servers humming in some data center 1,000 miles away process those photos, tell you what to do next, or tell you where to go, where not to go. And ultimately the net result is maybe you don't need to factor in all that slack into all four of those categories. So maybe instead of buying, I'm making this up, 1,000 tons of fertilizer and chemicals, where you're going to waste 20% of it. Somebody can probably send us an email or tweet or something and tell us what the right number is. But there's a certain amount of slack that's already baked in as like I'm going to waste this, and if that goes figuratively from like 20% to 5%, that's massive, absolutely massive. And I think that's going to be one of the near term, whether Orchard Robotics does it or whatever. I think the point is, though, is that like that's where we're going to see some of the biggest gains soonest. And then ultimately, as that slack goes down, I think those savings eventually make it all the way through to the restaurants that purchase things and the consumers all the way at the grocery stores. But again, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think there is a future where, this replaces it, to your point, like the migrants or whatever they're going to do, right? This is not an either or that I'm trying to portray. I'm just kind of coming at it from like a slightly different angle that you've got these large costs, fixed costs, including the labor, regardless of who the labor is. You've got these big costs. And if you could just, it's kind of like going back to venture capital. Everybody wants to think that venture capital, doesn't matter if you're an angel investor or a VC, doesn't matter. In a world where, like, if I knew who the winners are, if you and I knew who the winners were going to be, we wouldn't have to make all these investments. I know this sounds ridiculous, right? But we just invest in the winner now and know that it's going to grow. But in a world where you don't know that's true and you don't know how to read the future, none of us do, then really what the business of venture capital is about making fewer wrong decisions. And I think that's where technologies like Orchard Robotics, I think, could be really fascinating here, is that it allows the farm owner, the farm managers, all the people that have to direct these large capital expenditures to make fewer wrong decisions. And that's going to be huge. And I think that's going to help them run more efficient businesses. Whether or not they choose to employ people or not is up to you, up to them. But like if they run more efficiently, costs kind of eventually trickle through to all the rest of us, and that's a good thing. So
Yeah, I
I
mean, I
don't
don't.
think I was pushing back.
Yeah, no, and to be clear, like I don't think I'm saying that I think that this will net eliminate jobs. I think it takes jobs off of farms. I think if we said like before, you know, before the tractor existed, there were a lot more people on the farms and there were horses pulling plows.
Yes, 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 yes. That's right.
So, I mean, I think what you end up getting is, you end up a couple of things. First off, I think somebody who didn't grow up in a farming family now potentially has tools that would help them be able to run a farm because they can more accurately analyze fruit and they don't, that you're reducing error at the margins, but you're also, I mean, to be clear, like if we didn't have that reliance on, say, migrant workers to farm crops, I don't necessarily say that that solves the unemployment issue. I do think AI is going to disrupt significantly, entry level jobs. And so a lot of the people that do entry level jobs today are going to have to figure out what it is they're going to do for a career when the robot is shaking the metaphorical French fries. I think it's more just, I think this is the first time, and maybe I'm just late to the game. This is the first time where I actually can see a path where maybe not the lion's share, but a significant number of jobs that are manual labor on farms could start to be sunsetted over time. Certainly,
Yeah.
you need to deploy the cameras. You need to refine the technology. It's obviously not going to categorize every harvest correctly. There are going to be edge cases, just like robo taxis not rolling out
Yeah.
everywhere across the country. Like this is, but this is, I think, the first time where I can say some parts of the process that have always been highly specialized and always been something that had to be done by humans seems to, like, I can sort of see a path how those things could now be, go from many to one or a few doing those jobs.
Agree. Agree. Yeah. This is going to sound really callous and cold, but really it's what technology's always done. It sort of destroys the middle. It doesn't destroy like the edges usually. Well, in rare cases it can, but in the middle, it's the people that either can't or don't add enough value, and the technology is able to replace them.
Yeah.
So now you may, well, anyway, you get it. But yeah, it's an uncomfortable thing to say, but it's true, right? I mean, we saw it in the stock exchanges. You needed all these brokers, but then once you tech enabled those, now if you and I today really wanted a human broker, we could go hire one and pay a slightly higher percentage. On the other extreme, anybody that doesn't add any value, like we don't need those. Those guys aren't employed anymore, and now we can just use our Wealthfront account or just log into JP Morgan online and buy one share of Vanguard and chill. you know so anyway, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, and I don't know this company personally,
No,
but it's probably
my
one of the first ag tech companies in a long time that, because of their distribution model, was really really eye-catching to me. So
Yeah, no,
super interesting.
I would agree, and I think good spot for us to transition to the other article that we want to cover today, and see if we can get you fired up. The headline here is that workers at 90% of companies, and the article doesn't go into great detail on how they got to their 90% extrapolation, but a significant number of companies, workers at those companies are saying that they are using chat tools, AI chat tools, but that they're not disclosing that to the IT teams. And I have some real world examples of this from my businesses, but boy, this one got you fired up.
Well, look, and I'll explain, but the caveat here is that it probably doesn't matter for most until all of a sudden it does. And so, like, why it really worries me is, for example, in our business at Strata, we have a lot of patient data, a lot. I mean,
Right.
that is the core business, right? So a few months ago, maybe it's almost a year ago now, we had to update our employee handbooks to make sure that there was some language in there that they couldn't use unapproved AI or GPT like tools, and then we identified one that they could use because it was within our BAA and all this stuff. Anyway, but I worry that, like, at some point somebody is not gonna, without any malicious intent, that somebody employed by us is gonna be working on something on their screen, and maybe get stuck, and then they mean really well. They take a screenshot, they dump it into an external ChatGPT account and say, help me understand this, or what do I do next?
Right.
And they meant well. I don't think they're going to be malicious. They meant well. But now, since none of us really have any visibility into where that data goes into chat, because it could be their personal account. I've just leaked PHI, or personal health information,
Yeah.
and that has profound, what's the word, ripple
Repercussions.
effects on that. Like, if
Yeah.
once we become aware that that's happened, we have an obligation, legal obligation, to then let the affected parties know, and that's just terrifying. Right now, this may not matter if, I don't know, if your graphics designer somewhere takes a screenshot of something and says, let me use my personal chat GPT or whatever, and I don't know, get inspiration for a logo they got to design. It may be different. I don't know. My point is, though, is that, like, now that you've got well, let me pause there. It did get me fired up, but not necessarily in an angry way, but more of like a risk, from a risk standpoint.
Well, I think the interesting part here too is, like, use that example, the specific example you gave. I'm an employee working for you, and I take some data and I push it through one of these models, and I say, help me understand it. My gosh, I mean, like, I've seen reports about, hey, Google is indexing chat GPT searches, disable the setting if you don't want your searches put out there, blah, blah, blah. It could be quite some time before you find this information out, that the information was leaked, because while Google might index it, using your example of the PHI data for inside your company, it's at least for right now, most of how this is getting discovered is people are doing general searches. Maybe they're about themselves or their company or things of that nature. But I don't know what would cause someone to try to search to find out if Strata disclosed personal health information for its clients. And it might not even be clear it was Strata. It might be data for one of your clients, and they don't realize that Strata was the link. And it gets me thinking, it puts my business mind in place of, gosh, from an insurance standpoint, the long tail on how long you have to file an insurance claim for these sorts of breaches now becomes really important to read in your insurance policies, because it's unclear to me that you would find out about this quickly.
Yes. Short answer, yes. Well, let me pause there. Is there a question baked in there somewhere? Because
No, I think it's more just a statement of, like, it's an interesting world, and trying to figure out how to find this stuff, like, knowing that this was an issue.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like, I'm surprised more law firms. I'm surprised, like, we haven't heard more, like, for example, with law firms doing something around this. So let's play this out. Let's say you owned a law firm. You've got 5, partners there. You got, I'm going to make it up, 30, what do you call it? Not the assistants. They're like the paralegals. You've got, like, let's say you got 30 paralegals, right? And now all of a sudden there's a crazy case come up, and now everybody's doing discovery, and you need these paralegals to go through all this stuff. Well, years ago, I remember a friend of mine in Arlington had started a company that did optical character recognition. When somebody gave you 10,000 documents for your, to review during legal discovery, you used to have a paralegal go through line by line and read it all and figure it out. And then a new industry popped up when scanners became a thing. This is probably like in the mid 2000s, really, when the prices dropped, where now law firms could ship those stacks. I remember seeing it. There were some cases where an entire 18-wheeler would show up with discovery documents, and they'd put them through these commercial grade scanners, optical OCR, optical character recognize all of them, return a PDF back to the attorneys, and then the paralegals could use find, like Control F, find, right? That massively improved their throughput and their ability to not miss things, right? That's great. But now imagine that same scenario in 2025. You've got a bunch of these PDFs, a known process of, hey, look, we're looking for this phrase, we're looking for that name, we're looking for whatever it is, right? And a well-meaning paralegal says, you know what? Let me just try something. They take that PDF, they dump it into their personal ChatGPT account. Again, well-meaning. It was not malicious at all. But now, all of a sudden, inadvertently, every name, every unrelated conversation, everything else in the PDF just went into the void of whatever tool they just used. And now, back to your point, anybody that got picked up in that has no idea of it. That's terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, well, especially because, I mean, I don't know about you, but I have just by accident, I have two Chat GPT accounts. I have one with one email address that was a free account, and then I signed up for the paid account with my work email. And sometimes I log in the other one by mistake, and maybe I don't realize it. So I mean, like, these don't have to be malicious.
That's right. They're not malicious. Yeah.
There's an even greater level of inadvertence. I think, it wouldn't surprise me if we see a level of these models come out where there's, where enterprise companies are, putting a special background on it or watermarking the results. I mean, I think watermarking, and I've heard a couple of references to this across the board when it comes to these GPT models, but I think enterprise watermarking of images and data is going to be a big part of this.
I mean, I didn't put this article in here for us to discuss today, but did you hear there was some engineer that worked at XAI, right, that downloaded the entire code base of the chatbot and uploaded it to OpenAI? Like,
wow, how long did that take?
Who knows? But this was at the time of this recording, it was like less than a week ago.
Wow.
And so it's very early. It's just accusations going everywhere and things like that. But now it's like, what else got caught up in that? Who knows? Maybe, September 3rd. Looks like September 3rd. So just a couple days ago, a restraining order was issued to allow, anyway, so they're going in, they're chasing this down pretty fast. So, but it'll be interesting. And maybe that'll be the precedent to say, like, hey, where did it all go? Where did all that data go? So anyway.
All right. Well, I think that's probably a good place to pin it for this week. I have this sneaky suspicion we'll be talking about AI again in the future.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. All right. So you are, well, I think when we record next week, are you still here on the East Coast, or are you going to be back?
I mean, who the heck knows? Yeah, it's a little bit of a roller coaster right now at the restaurant opening. So hopefully I'll be home for a little longer, spend some time with the family. That's for sure.
I love it, man. All right. Well, I got a couple, I think I might have a day trip to Lafayette, Louisiana, possibly. And I'm definitely doing a day trip down to Kansas City, or over to Kansas City in a couple days. So
I do love Kansas City from a barbecue standpoint. Really great.
Hit me up.
So I would say, like, the original Oklahoma Joe's, even though I don't think it's called Oklahoma Joe's anymore. I think it's just called Joe's. But there's a place called Woodyard, if it's still there, Woodyard Barbecue, which is like an active woodyard. I think we went there during a tech tour stop.
Yeah, we did that. I think we were, yes, we did. Actually, you and I went. I remember. It was with somebody from the university, I think, and a group of people. Could be.
And I'm looking, I've not been to Lafayette, Louisiana, and I'm looking at it on the map, and that's out there.
Let me tell you something. There's not a whole lot of direct flights from my part of the country right now.
You connect, if you're lucky, you get into Baton Rouge, but my guess is that you probably fly into New Orleans and hang a right, or maybe you catch an Allegiant flight to Beaumont or something.
I'm actually working on that right now, where I've got, this is the AI I need. I just want to be able to say, show me nonstop options. I need to go to here and build me a whole table. I feel like I'm sure somebody's going to tell me you could do that, but
yeah, for Lafayette, Louisiana, that table's easy. There isn't any non-stop options for you. You're welcome.
There. You are my AI. That's it. You're the little man in the machine. I love it.
You're welcome. Yeah, it does not appear. It does not appear that Lafayette, Louisiana has.
I just got your next business idea to talk about in your travel podcast.
There you go.
Okay, it's you walking around with your AirPods in. You remember when we were all growing up? It was like the 1-900 numbers or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So you should just be walking around with your AirPods in, and people can just dial 1-900 Ed Pizza or something like that, and just you're always available for these questions. You are the man in the machine.
Well, I can definitely tell you, looking at this, you will absolutely be connecting. Your best bet is Charlotte, but since you're a United flyer, you're probably connecting in Houston. And let me just tell you how fun that is in September during thunderstorm season.
Fun. God, you're really selling this for me. I love it.
I really am. And if you want to go to Beaumont, your one and only option is American Airlines at DFW. So any way you look at this, unless you fly American, you're going to see a pretty healthy dose of thunderstorms on your way to or from Lafayette. So I wish you good luck with that, Mr. Singh. I do wish you good luck.
Oh, man, you're always so positive.
I'm positive you're going to have a travel experience. Yes, I am positive.
I love it.